They finally did it! They finally arrived! The Redcat Racing factory upgrades for the Redcat RDS. I have the front knuckles, I have the lower front control arms, the transmission, and the spur gear adapter. And in this specific video, we're going to be looking at the front knuckles. These are brand new aluminum knuckles, come with some steering stops, some spacers. We're going to be looking at getting them installed on the car here and seeing how they perform. What's going to be important is before we do anything here with this front suspension, we need to make sure that we take some detailed measurements. What is the toe out? What is the camber? All of this kind of stuff, because as we start swapping these front suspension components, it's probably going to be slightly different, and we're going to have to readjust turnbuckle links and everything to get it back to the setup that you had before. Now, I don't have one of those super fancy setup boards in order to help me with this, so I'm going to cheat by using a piece of paper and kind of using just as a stencil and taking some notes. So what I did here was lay down and trace the front bumper, and then as it stands up, use a very thin ruler straight edge to mark where the tire's toe was, and then used simple RPM camber gauge to measure the camber of both front tires. That should give me a very good baseline to help me get back to where I am right now. With the body off and the tire off, then it's going to be pretty simple to get this original knuckle off. We're going to just simply come in here and pop off bottom, top hub, and this steering turnbuckle. And this is the time to go ahead and very carefully look at the new part and old part side by side to note the differences and where you're going to be putting some parts. So as an example, the factory part has one mounting location top and bottom. The new part has two on the top and one on the bottom. So you need to know which one you want to put it in. On the top, it appears that the mounting location the closest to the steering turnbuckle options here, that is the one that mimics the factory alignment. So if you're happy with your alignment, like I am with mine, then moving that back there is an option. If you move it to the front hole and everything else is equal, then what you're going to be doing is actually creating a little bit more caster. So those are for those folks that really like to run a lot of caster and a lot of camber. You now have that option with this additional hole here. When I look at the pattern that they've offered here for the steering setup, for the steering turnbuckle, initially it looks like the one that I use right here that's next to the steering stopper, looks like they just eliminated it. But when you really get close and you start to really overlay these, what you see is this 3-hole pattern on the outside here, that is the same as 1, 2, and 3 from the factory plastic knuckle, which means basically they've eliminated these two outer ones, which I don't think many people were probably using anyway. And then there's this new hole over here, which is actually further in, and I'm guessing that is where we're going to be using our steering stopper. The other thing that you will then notice is that this new part is noticeably shorter than the factory plastic piece, and that's why in this little kit here, it provides some little spacers. Those are supposed to go underneath here and then raise it back up to the height that you had before. So again, it looks like as long as we are smart about it, and we use this back hole here, we use this hole here, we'll line up over there, and then we put these spacers on, you should be able to swap these over with zero impact to your alignment, but now you have some different tuning options that you had before. I'm going to start by taking all these balls off and moving them over one by one onto the new part. Yes, I'm going to use those provided spacers as I move them over, and I'm going to use some Loctite to make sure that these don't back out on me. With all of those balls now transferred over, you can also put the steering stopper in, and yes, this is a beautifully designed steering stopper here. I really like this. Threaded, shouldered, and down on this end, space for a 1.5mm driver. I really like that. That's a fancy one. So I'm going to put it in this innermost hole. This is the new hole that did not exist prior. I'm going to put it in there. The last piece that needs swapped over is the hex itself, its pin, the axle that just comes out. But this is a grand opportunity, especially depending on your situation, to grease or replace your bearing. I bought some of these ProTech. These are some ceramic metal shielded bearings that I'm going to be replacing with, because my factory ones have some time on them now. They have some age. Putting some oil in them and getting these installed in place of these old ones. With all that swapped over, we have a brand new Knuckle to be popped right back on. Oh, that looks really good on there. Check that out. Fits beautifully, nice and compact. Still allows me, with that steering stopper, looks like it allows me to get to 90 degrees, so I'm not worried there. Probably that steering stopper is going to do just fine. I'm going to then jump over here to the right-hand side of the car, do the same thing over here on this Knuckle. I'm only going to stop and let you know if there's anything specific that I find that's unique or different. Magic of video editing. Look at that. It's all back together. It bolted together beautifully, just like the other side. No issue at all. Last check here is then to reconfirm the alignment. And yes, it does look like that alignment matches back up to what I had before. So that is good news. Very happy about that. So now I'm really curious to see how this car does. And with these other options that they've given us on these Knuckles, what additional tuning can we do? You know, as an example, if I move this upper mount to the forward one, cock back some additional caster into it, maybe I can actually reduce my front toe while driving straight, but then still end up with a proper Ackerman, proper camber as we go into proper drift. That could be interesting and maybe help free up a little bit of extra speed out of the car. So, looking forward to some days at the track where I can tune a little bit more and see how we can unlock additional performance now that we have these new parts. If you have any questions about what I did or how I did it, please leave them down in the comments below. And if you're curious about anything else that I've done with the Redcat RDS, including the other upgrade factory parts that they offered, those are all in the Redcat RDS playlist. It's popping up over here to your right. Thank you and goodbye.